Hello, welcome to this week's episode on Survivor Maryland Major Conflict, a podcast brought to you by Live Reality Games. My name is Steven, and I'm here today with the wonderful Naomi. Naomi, how are you doing?
I'm great. I had a bit of a devastating morning. I found out that I don't align well with Trader Joe's dark chocolate, and so I have to reassess a lot of stuff that's going on in my life.
Wow.
Just makes my tummy feel funny, but
I think the problem is you haven't eaten enough of it.
So you're saying I should eat more?
Okay. You need to know for sure whether it really works for you or not.
I will go pound a pound of caramels when we're done with this. Thank you. You're a doctor, right?
Soon. Yes, I can help doctor your books. That is my specialty.
Steven, I'm great. What's up? This episode made me sad, though.
We put out in the universe that we wanted one of two things to occur. Our favorite alliance jam, Jasmine, Angie, Morgan, to be safe, and also Doug, who seems to be, personally, I feel the villain of the season and the driving force to be safe to the merge. And, well, the universe took our request and spat it back in our face, and here we are, and Jasmine's voted out.
What a bummer. I mean, I just wanted one thing. I wanted the all-girls alliance to be safe. I wanted them to be okay. And every time they would say, oh, I'm pretty close with, Angie and Morgan, I'd be like, Jasmine, don't say that. Don't say that you're that close. But I hope you do well. And then it just completely caught up with them to the point where this has been a back-to-back of 2 episodes that make me sad. Even though it's a great season, I am devastated to lose these guys.
Now I feel slightly happy because my girl Morgan was the decoy boo, and so she ended up being safe. So I wonder if Pick survives yet another week, though. Man, going forward, there's gonna be a lot more danger that she needs to navigate.
And so it's a 7-7 swap, right? So we're at 14.
So now we're at final 13 with Jasmine gone.
Right. So feasibly 2 more votes before the merge. So the risk is high.
I've been scarred by the survival challenge doing a merge at 9. So we could have a while to go.
That's fucked up.
Oh yeah, 24 players, merge at 9. There's a lot of people whose wings were clipped right before the merge, and it was painful. So let's hope Anders doesn't do that to us. Merge out 12 or 11, please.
I could see Anders doing that to us, just making our lives harder than it already has been. I needed good things in quarantine, not Jasmine going home. But fine.
So I know we want to walk through this entire episode, but let's just talk about Jasmine a little bit, and we'll go more into her game later. Did she misplay?
I think I'm going to say yes, and I feel bad saying that because I don't want to dishonor her memory, but I think the girls made a mistake of playing 2 together. They were very clearly always working with each other, and you see in a successful alliance I'm trying to think of all I can think of are good Big Brother alliances, just because they have funny nicknames and so they're easier to remember. But the Brigade, they pulled people in, and so everybody felt close to one of their alliance members, and therefore nobody really turned on each other, and they were able to go really far. But in this, it feels like the girls were tight with each other, and they had tangential alliances, but in this swap situation, those friendships didn't carry them far enough, especially the relationship with Santi just couldn't get them over the finish line. And so it's really tough to see. And I do think they misplayed just by showing how close they were and showing their cards.
So you're saying this is more on the 3 of them together, not Jasmine particularly?
I mean, I think Jasmine overplayed a little bit, but I think there was a case for any of them to go. They talked about Morgan being weaker, and they talked about sort of Angie being all over the place, weaker. I mean, it's always BS. It's just hey, you're a woman who's under 120 pounds.
Well, let's be honest. Every woman on this season that's not Abby is weaker than Abby. It's like no one wants to go against Abby and be steamrolled by Abby because that's how Abby rolls.
Yeah, every time we see Sadie's knee brace, I'm waiting for a confessional. It's like, well, Sadie has a knee brace, so I think she's weaker. But
I
yeah,
think
I
anyone under 6'4" is weaker than me. Therefore, they should be voted out. Yeah, it's just it doesn't fly for me.
Yeah, well, just put me in a wrestling competition, and suddenly, who's weaker now? Still me. I think there was an argument for any of the girls to go home, and I think it just became clear over time that Jasmine was almost like the head of the snake, if that makes sense. And I don't know how you prevent that other than underplaying your relationships with the other women in your group.
I'd like to, later on, I'd like to talk about this from Santi's point of view, how I think this was the correct move for him and what the girls should have been doing in response to him versus trying to be coy and playing both sides. But we'll get to that later. So we start with like, the post tribal council drama. I don't really have much from that. Sadie's kind of sad that Eric's gone. She's like, well, this wasn't as satisfying as I expected. She doesn't take joy in crushing our hearts like we thought she did.
Well, because also I think Eric rightfully so. Eric wasn't a jerk. Eric apologized. Eric said, I'm sorry for the way he behaved. And the only crushing people's souls is satisfying when they're jerks about it. And when they're not, when they say, I'm sorry, you're like, oh shit, they're nice. Oh God, what do I do? So I understand where Sadie's coming from. And I think it just is like, yeah, sometimes voting people out just sucks and you feel bad and it hurts emotionally. Like, welcome to Survivor.
Before we get to the swap, we get some scenes with Doug and Dalaran. Tell me your thoughts about Dalaran, her playing, and what Doug is doing here.
I think Dalaran has a really interesting storyline with Sadie where, Dalaran is kind of shocked by the idea that she was going to be the vote when Eric won immunity. And from there, I think like Doug and Sadie understand that Dalaran is, to an extent, a lesser threat in the merge than Dane. Dane's a bit of a wild card. We see Dane immediately bail on the relationship he has with Eric. We see him kind of all over the place. And so I think if you're looking at liabilities to take into the merge, Dane is very high risk and Dalaran is very low risk. Because as far as I can tell, maybe you'll have a different opinion than me, I don't think Dalaran is doing a lot in the game. That doesn't mean she's playing a poor game. It just means she's not doing a lot. She's got her own life. She's got shit to do. She's got to go out on a Friday night, Steven. Don't hold it against her. And so, she isn't an actively sort of, the cogs aren't working all the time, which is fair. Like, it's completely fair. Whereas Doug is
way worse when you put it that way.
I know. Doug is just freaking out all the time, but his mind is always going, whereas Dalaran is able to take a step back and say, well, I'm not playing the game right now. And so she's a higher sort of loyalty going forward. If that makes sense.
I mean, for me, I personally, if I was in her situation, I would not be looking to really make tight alliances with Doug and co. Just because, okay, clearly I was expendable once. I can be expendable a second time, right? These people already showed that, and they had these. Clearly, there was this alliance of 4 within this alliance of 6 that felt that way, plus Amanda. So I would be a lot more wary about that. I would really be looking to say, how can I capitalize on Abby's connections, my roommate, between Mike and Liam and everything else? So I would personally be like, hey, I'll flip. Like, the swap is a great time. But instead, we see her cement like this seemingly a really strong connection with Sadie and Doug. She bonds with Doug, saying both our roommates are in their tribe. We're both in the situation together. Let's work there. She forms a threesome with her, Doug, and Sadie. I mean, honestly, I think, yes, this is good for a game to have these alliances to mend these bridges, but man, it's just even better for Doug.
Yeah, and it's again like a real testament to Doug's game that like Dane is with Doug and Sadie is with Doug and Dalaran is with Doug and all these people are like, yeah, I'm still with Doug. And you're like, you're still with Doug? I
mean,
what?
You look at the 6th person of the old Pascala tribe, and Doug is now in the middle, right? He's insulated with his South Campus dorm alliance of Tim and Amanda. He's working with Dane. He has this threesome with Sadie and Sadie and Amanda now. But he also has the Anders Angels with Sadie and Tim. I mean, he has all his fingers in all the pies, and he's pretty cemented.
I would say if you are going to play College Survivor and you're looking for somebody as a good example of how to play the game, I think Doug has a lot of things you can learn from, like how he talks to his roommate too much and he reveals too much information, or, you know, isolating Dalaran and Dane. He sort of just lucks into getting them back. But Doug has made a lot of moves that I think anybody who's playing College Survivor could really learn from and really sort of utilize in a similar manner to be good at the game. And just fucking props to Doug. How is Doug this good? I don't get it.
And the final thing I thought was revealing about this whole segment was Dalaran talking about how, she and Dana are in this, I think they're in the business fraternity with each other.
Yes.
Let me go to the cheat sheet just to double check what it is. But she and Dane have had this kind of marriage at convenience, but she doesn't have a close bond with them. And so it's like, I'd rather work with people I'm close with. And honestly, Dane's not that person. And it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Dane, what are you doing?
Well, we don't see them really ever. We don't see them talk without Eric often. And we don't see them really talk post-swap.
Yeah.
So I think that you're right. You're totally right. It's marriage of convenience, and it's just going to fracture. Yeah. And we're never going to see Dane and Dalaran reunite. Like, it's not happening. But I think people are going to think of them as a pair, and that's bad. You know.
So we get to the challenge. In the very first start, we do a swap. We get Pascala 2.0. And so from old Pascala, we still see Dane, Tim, and Amanda. And then we get Jasmine, Angie, Morgan, our Jam Alliance, and Santi joining them. And then Chikasha 2.0 has the old members of Abby, Mike, Liam, and Josh, and they get Doug, Sadie, and Dalaran to join them. Now, I know you watched the after show and I didn't. Was this meant to be such an even swap like it was?
I didn't get too far into the after show just because I had a lot going on this week. But I think this is just one of those, it's like a great time to swap because there's going to be, someone's going to have like an advantage, someone's going to have a disadvantage. You know, how big is that? I mean, we literally get the like 4-4 sort of thing. So really, Chikasha has it good both ways. But like in most sort of plannings of this, it's more of a, you just kind of hope it's chaos. And we got instead very nice, neat little packages. Yeah. So I don't know if it was intentionally like, you know, boy girl separated as some Survivor seasons do, but I like the way it kind of turned out because we've been seeing Pascala play a weird game. And now that they are sort of playing from the bottom, it's really interesting to see who is appealing to who. And then at the same time, what we saw in like All Stars of Maryland was like other people trying to control what happens on the other tribe that goes to tribal council. Like Liam is really sticking his fingers in what's happening on the other tribe. And if that's ever going to come back to bite him, if people are going to see him as schemy and manipulative, if they ever find out that he was with Jam, I don't know.
I mean, but isn't the best way to play, like, it's a college driver, you're not sequestered on different beaches from each other, right? So like to the extent I have allies and I have in my own agenda, I should be working with those allies in that agenda. I think that's a pretty good use of time.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's a great way to solidify something further, right? Because you get to the alliance and you get to the merge and, oh, Liam's been with us the whole time. He's been talking to us even on a different tribe. Let's work with him. But what it can do is like if Santi finds out that Liam is trying to get Amanda out or whatever, and then that gets back to Doug, then Doug doesn't trust Liam, and then it like the spiral sort of happens. So I guess it's always, you know, I'm the more I watch Survivor in colleges, the more it seems like people don't really think about the way that information gets back to everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important lesson is if you're going to tell somebody something, it's going to go everywhere. If you tell somebody the plan that you only half trust, they're definitely going to tell other people that plan. And you just have to sort of assume that, because I think one of the big Jam mistakes is assuming that Amanda or Dane are not going to test out their options and then relay it back to Tim and other people. It's weird. It's very tricky. Got to be careful with what you say.
I mean, even in actual LRGs, like, so when I played Reelfoot, it was frustrating that like you couldn't tell a plan because it would get leaked out somehow, and now everyone knew. It's like, well, what's the point of trust if we're just gonna like if it's all gonna get told to anyone anyways? It was very hard to work with, and I learned postseason that the winner would always go to each person, vote out, saying, "Hey, you're the target. You're being voted out. I'm not," and really like work over that potential jury member that way ahead of time. I'm just like, man, that was good strategy.
Shout out. I mean, it really is like the relay of information. This happens in an episode of Buffalo that I was in, or my tribe goes to tribal after the swap. And we told one of the swapped members, like, look, it's going to be the other person. But if you want to vote for somebody on our side, we could be tempted to vote for this person. Like, you could sway us. But then they immediately ran and told Nick. We told Nick, hey, we might vote for Lindsay. Nick goes to tell Lindsay, and we're like, no, don't tell Lindsay. We can't trust you now. Like, everything kind of spirals. And I think that's the big example of what not to do in a situation like this, where you're in a pretty set spot in the swap. Is like, I think Jam should have been looping in Santi more, because the minute you leave Santi out of things, and then he finds out from Tim or Dane that they're kind of scheming around, it goes to hell. So my question really is, you were talking about a little, what do you think about Santi in this whole thing? Because, really this is the star of the episode. Like, the challenge, sure, but like this is the whole thing is the star. This tribe's dilemma.
So when we look at Pascala 2.0, the old Chikasha members are in a great position, right? We have Jasmine, Angie, Morgan, Santi. They have this 4-3 advantage. But Santi's been an interesting position where he has been in these alliances. He has been in this dominant alliance in his tribe, but those other members, Mike, Liam, and Sco, have kind of been looking at him and looking at Josh, saying this could be a future problem. Like, they've been starting to eye him. We've seen discussion of when do we take a pot shot at Santi and take him out and blindside him now before it becomes a problem later. And in this episode, I think is where we really see Santi and Doug kind of admit, yeah, we've been talking to each other, telling each other everything, and you're like, okay, they are working together, they are an alliance. I mean, they're roommates, this is what we'd expect. And so Santi has options here of like, does he roll with this Pascala? No, so does he roll with Chikasha Strong, or does he jump ship because he's really good friends with Tim apparently, and like and there's this alliance that Doug's built up that he can fit in and stuff like that. And frankly, I don't fault him for jumping ship now. I don't know if the girls were, if the three girls really like made him paranoid that they were going to vote for him, but we know they were thinking of voting him at some point. He was the member they were willing to give up, and so I think for that point, it was smart to jump ship now and start a new alliance and take out one of those old that weren't going to be trustworthy in the long run.
Yeah, and you have to remember. Well, we all know that he and Dane are roommates. They were roommates.
Doug, not Dane.
Oh, sorry, Doug. Listen, there's a lot of D names on this season, guys, and sometimes you just want to say Dane instead of Doug. They're both 4 letters. It's fine. But Doug is his roommate, and so in this situation, like, if he sees that he can, because from Santi's perspective, you look at like Sadie. I could probably beat Sadie. Dalaran. Could probably beat Dalaran. Doug. I could maybe beat Doug, but I could certainly cut Doug towards the end because he's a big threat, or have Doug's alliance for a long time. Dane, you can beat Dane. You can beat Tim. You can beat Amanda if you're Santi. So all you have to do, really, if you're Santi, is lose some of your former red tribe before the merge, so that when you go in, Pascal is feeling good. And then you kind of cut, like, you can sort of flip back and forth and cut some yellow and cut some red. And like, if you have, like, I guess it's a weird social strategy that I've never really seen play out. But if you take a minority group into the merge and then eliminate that minority group, are they going to feel better towards voting for you to win? Or are they going to feel mad that you didn't do enough to protect them? And that's what I'm kind of thinking about here is if Santi really teams up with the yellows and goes forward, does he have the opportunity to sort of milk them for jury votes? That's a long ways ahead, but
Yeah, it is a question like what. So like it's the Cochrane dilemma, right? If he had flipped and had it been voted out, would it? Well, he flips, and let's say he wasn't voted out. He gets the end of South Pacific. Does any of his original tribe vote for him? Like, because I think from my understanding, they felt pretty burned by him in that season. And so I feel like with Santi at this point, I think he's gonna have he's gonna definitely have damage control with Jasmine, no, Angie, and Morgan. But I don't think it's gonna be the death nail in his game, especially if he does play a very active middle role in some said merge. I think what makes this so different though is he's not jumping from his alliance to an unknown ship. This ship he's jumping to has two good friends of his, Doug and Tim, and that changes everything, right? It means he's not on theoretically the peripheral of this power structure. He's going to be more embedded in it.
Exactly. Like he has a much safer leap than anybody in any sort of season of Survivor.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I concur.
It's just a question of like how deeply is he embedded? Because let's say, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but let's say both Pascal 2.0 takes out Angie or Morgan, then Chikasha 2.0 picks apart Mike and Liam and Abby, right? Let's say that happens. So we roll into the merge with this large conglomerate alliance centered around Doug.
Yeah.
Right? And at that point, let's say people just follow him blindly and Doug is able to just knock out people on the outskirts as he goes while keeping a core alliance intact, and people as they realize it don't have enough power to make any moves at that point because the minority is so tiny as they realize like, oh, I'm the outs and everyone's fine to vote me out. I mean, where does Santi fall in that? Is he like in final 3 with Doug, or is Doug like looking at final 5 saying, yeah, I can't be the last Chikasha member standing?
Well, I think Doug and Santi are both smart enough to say, well, I got to cut this bitch before we get to final 5 or 4. I just think it's a question of, is Santi willing to jump to a ship that's largely loyal to Doug?
He just did.
Well, yes, but like, is he going to permanently stay there? You know what I mean? Like, they're loyal to Doug over anything else. And while I think it's beneficial, I do think it's a good idea. But I also think Santi's going to need to make some moves that involve blindsiding some of the yellow tribe members.
Yeah, I agree. I think. But yeah. I think it's really going to depend on how whittled down is the old Chikasha tribe by merge. Because let's say we lose another 2 old Chikasha members, right? Then it's going to be like an easy 6-5, but Santi's then it's going to be hard without more fractures in the old Pascala tribe to do something.
Exactly. And I love to see like a situation where we kind of enter sort of like an all-stars like sort of merge where shit just gets crazy because people are picking sides, and those sides are all kind of like.
Did you pay attention to the music of this episode?
A little bit. What?
So you know when we had Eric's Shining Glory episode where Chris is voted out, your favorite player. When we had the episode, we had this like heroic music narrating this move that Eric is finding and discovering and bringing Dane and Dalaran in. And this episode, as soon as we get Dane saying, yeah, I'm not working the girls, you just get this kind of this dark, menacing music that kind of pervades the rest of the episode of just like, this is bad. I thought that was very interesting that the episode itself is making us kind of root against what's going on here by this tribe.
Yes. And you know, it's funny. I think because Dane is playing so reckless, any Survivor fan can't really root for him because we're like, what are you doing, Dane? Like he's just, Dane is Dane. And I'm sure Dane thinks he's doing something good for his game, but he's not. And, you know, when Dane eventually gets voted out because he's playing recklessly, we'll talk to him and we'll say, why did you do all these things? Yeah. But, you know, it's I guess because we knew that it was going to suck when Jasmine went, that music probably hits different.
Yeah, you know, let me rant about Dane. So like I came in thinking from just talking with Anders that Dane was going to be this kind of Machiavellian villain, right? Who's going to be trying to orchestrate things behind the scenes. And he has a fairly quiet first couple of episodes, and then Eric wins immunity. Dalaran is targeted. Eric brings him in. We get this great reversal where the advantage is played. Chris goes home. And then the next episode, we have Dane's like, yeah, that I don't really like Eric anymore. That really ticked me off. I felt used by him. I want to be the one using. I want to be the villain. I don't want to be enabling other villains. And so Dane therefore flips on Eric. At this point, Dane probably had been the next person out. We get some murmurings this episode that he was next on the chopping block for his tribe if they had gone to the tribal council again.
Right.
But we see Dane really cement alliances with the old Pascala tribe. And this episode, he gets an olive branch from the three girls. Now, how legitimate that was, it's kind of hard to say, but I think they weren't looking to vote him out. I think they were looking to really bring him in and then to take out, let's say, Amanda and then Santi or something like that. And Doug's just like, yeah, no, and he goes back to his old alliance, spills the beans, says, I want to work with you all. And it's just like, man, it's like if he was looking to play the villain role, that this was the villain's episode to strike. This is the time to betray your old tribe, vote them out, go with the new people, cause chaos. Like that's the opportunity. And he ended up playing the more safer tribal lines route.
And for like what reason? Because as far as I remember, Dane was on the bottom of the yellow tribe, and Dane wasn't getting jack shit if they went to another tribal council. Yeah. So like, I agree. I was pretty annoyed, but I guess like there has to be some element of this where Dane has this perception of his own game, and perception is reality, and you know all that lovely psychological torture we've talked about Survivor. Everyone's analyzed about Survivor, but realistically, I think because Dane seems to have a real lack of connections to the other side of the game, Dane is sticking with what he knows because he doesn't trust anybody on the other side.
And normally I wouldn't fault that. I mean, however, two things. One, he's in the minority, right? I don't think he knows at this point that Santi's really looking to jump ship. And I'm sure that comes out soon enough. But I don't think he knew up front that Santi was discontent like he was and was going to vote against his old tribe members. And second, man, I would just be so paranoid still about that Dalaran vote, saying, wow, you were going after her. Yes, it wasn't against me, but where does that leave me next?
Dane. And I was really rooting for Dane too. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I just can't even pontificate on this too much because my brain is like.
Wait. Sorry, Naomi, isn't the goal of this podcast for us to pontificate on things we know nothing about?
Yes, and that's the problem is like I can't pontificate on something that is making no sense to me. And like, no offense to Dane, because I'm sure Dane was trying really hard to do a good job and play his little heart out, but like I don't know what's going on, and it confuses me and it makes me annoyed, but it's fine. And furthermore, like, so Dane is like, I want to get Amanda out. Okay, great, get Amanda out.
And then great commentary on that where I think Morgan's like, he's wanted her out all along, but 4 people got voted out before her, so clearly he's not getting his way.
That fucking killed me. I love Morgan. Yes, like, and that's what's such a shame is like Doug easily could have gotten out Amanda, and it would have just been fine. You could have gotten out Amanda and Tim. Like, that's 2 people ahead of you, with the sort of knowledge that like Jasmine, Angie, and Morgan potentially want to make a move against Santi. So let's say your tribe goes to tribal council 3 times in a row. You're decimated. You still have the opportunity to get a big person like Santi out. And if Jasmine, Angie, and Morgan are punished for it by the other tribe on the other side when the time comes, then it gets to be your move if you make it to the end. I just like saw these dominoes being lined up for Dane, and I was like, awesome, this is gonna be great. And then it was like he just was like, I want to find out what Santi thinks of me, and like runs off. What the fuck, man? No disrespect to Dane. You're not like a Chris or anything, but like I just don't understand it.
Oh man. So I'd like to talk about a couple things before we really deconstruct this vote and all the other moving pieces. First of
Yes.
all, what are your thoughts on the challenge?
Um, I love it. I love all challenges. You know what I mean. It's just when you're putting people against each other, it's always going to be fun. Like the cleats, you know. And I also was sitting there thinking about how a fun fact is that in Real Foot we almost did a wrestling challenge my season, but my tribe was so frail that we didn't. And I
Congrats.
always wanted to do wrestling challenges. I did get to do like a steal the chicken in Buffalo, which was really fun. But I always think I'd be very good at wrestling challenges just because like I have a low center of gravity and I probably have like a good like 20 pounds on whoever I have to go against. And I love the physicality, but then I'm also, I don't know if you maybe feel this because you like are with college kids a little bit more. I'm always paranoid that like somebody from campus security is going to come by and be like, what the fuck is going on here? You're all in trouble.
That's why I do it late at night, right?
Yeah, or like some RA is going to come outside the door and be like, guys, what are you doing?
Well, I'd say the only good thing about Survivor Maryland is they tend to have a good connection with resident assistants. I think
Yeah,
I know,
was an
I know
RA.
the past host was a resident assistant. One of the former winners is a resident assistant. So I think they have good inroads to protect themselves there.
I am the antithesis of an RA, and so I feel like I don't know what RAs do, and
I was an RA, so I can tell you all about it.
I just assume that they want to take my hair dryers away. So it's
Yes, we enjoy collecting those.
so I'm like, well, they're gonna get in trouble, but I guess they don't, and that's good for them. I'm waiting for the episode where somebody gets in trouble on campus for doing Survivor. You know. And it's funny, this challenge happened, and then Survivor UVA also had a very similar challenge, but what they used was like pool floaties,
Nice,
like sort of a smaller circular like floaty device. I was kind of like, that's funny to like they're bopping each other with like a rubber ducky, and it's just funny that they both did this challenge. I don't know, you know,
I think that would be better because the cushion they were using was so small. It seemed like it had such small area to whack people with.
Yeah.
I was hoping like something larger to really push people with, versus like, you know, Abby standing up, Morgan's on the ground, and then Morgan's like, I'm not getting up. And Abby's like, what do I do? Push her, roll her, Abby.
I love that. I love when like a little girl's like, I'm just gonna curl up in a ball. This happens on the challenge a lot. Like the smaller women are like, I'm just gonna curl up in a ball and you can't touch me, haha. And it's like, okay, well, round's over. This isn't happening anymore. But I thought this was like a good potential opportunity for either tribe to win. It just kind of happened that like, you know.
Oof, yeah, Chikasha 2.0 was stacked for this, right? They got Mike, they got Liam, they got Abby.
Yeah, I was hoping, and Sadie. I think like I was hoping that maybe Jasmine and Santi and maybe Dane could pull it off, but like it just was.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little painful.
So we haven't talked about Chikasha 2.0 yet, and I'd like to dive into them before we return to the mess that is Pascala. So we have Doug, Sadie, and Dalaran as minority, and then we have Abby, Mike, Liam, and Josh as the majority. But it's not as simple as that, unfortunately.
You know, when I saw this swap, and I saw it happen, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Like Jasmine and Angie Morgan together. You know, the other tribe, interesting. Dalaran with Sadie and Doug, like Doug and Tim are split up. I never conceived of how much I'd heard after this episode. But the other tribe, this sort of Chikasha 2.0 is very interesting because I don't even really fully understand it. All I remember, like, it's been such a blur. People wanted to get Josh out.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to get Mike out. I don't even know where Liam is in all of this. And this is actually the one situation that I don't really understand how Liam has gotten away with sort of targeting a lot of the men on his side and not really getting any flack for it or getting caught. It's incredible.
Yeah, you know, I think because we saw like Mike and Liam reach out to Doug and say, hey, you know, it's okay. We're going to target Josh. Then we see Doug kind of saying, I don't really want to target Josh. I want to blindside Liam, but I don't know if I have votes for that. mean, the big question mark on the air is Dalaran and Abby. Are they going to work with each other? Are they going to be opposed to each other? They're certainly not voting each other out. It's just a question of where are they going. And I think ultimately it's going to come down to, does Josh know he's being targeted like this?
And is that going to be really bad for Liam? And is Liam going to do something with his advantage? Because Liam,
he's going to have to.
Don't promise anything to Amanda. Who gives a fuck about Amanda? Play your advantage for yourself. God. Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen is Mike and Liam are going to say, like, oh, wow, we just lost Jasmine. We can't target Josh anymore.
Right.
Because we don't want to give up more numbers on our tribe. Or like, right? So I think they're gonna say, hey, Josh, we really need to be old Chikasha strong. We need to really take out Sadie or Doug. We need to target one of them. And Josh would be like, okay, but Josh is gonna be pulled by Santi and say, no, work with Doug. And so Josh is gonna work with Doug. And Doug is like, I got your back. We're going for Liam. At this point, Liam needs to use the steal vote advantage to pull back the numbers to a 4-3 majority, assuming that Abby will vote with them.
Yeah. I think it's a lot.
Yeah, and so it's a lot. So, like, what could easily happen is that Liam doesn't realize that Josh is flipping. He doesn't realize that Doug doesn't want to work with them. And so Mike and Liam continue to vote Josh, and Doug and co. take out Liam.
I would be annoyed if Doug took out Liam, because I think Liam is one of the best players still in the game who is not on the Doug Santi side 100%. Yeah. And I think to have a strong villain, you need a strong opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested to see if Dalaran and Abby talk to each other about flipping one side to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where it's really going to rely on stuff working out heavily. Because if you're Liam, do you want to get rid of Doug or Sadie and keep your number strong? Because feasibly, if you get rid of another red person, you're going to be 6-6.
Yeah.
And you could merge at 12. Who knows? Like that could very well happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that would suck. Or you could get rid of one of the yellows and go in with a sort of big red majority and see where that goes from there. But I really hope Liam can pull this off. And I think what I would be almost more upset with is if Amanda somehow dissuades Liam from utilizing the advantage in his benefit.
I don't see if Amanda's gonna be swinging it. I think it's become down to how much does Liam trust Doug, and versus how much does he and Mike realize, like, oh shoot, we need to keep Josh around. I think it's gonna really change based off of what's the reaction to Jasmine going home, and how does that revise their planning going forward.
And like, not only that, but like, I love that everyone wants to target Josh. What is Josh doing? Josh is fine. He's just chilling. Like, why are we so anti-Josh?
So I think that's the problem, right? Like, people were anti-Josh because they had this alliance of 8 that was all voting with each other, and like, well, who do we pick off next? And it was like, oh, like, Josh is the least connected. Josh is the person, like, I think they acknowledge Josh is a nice guy and they get along with him. It's just, first of all, he's easy picking. Second of all, he might have an idol now.
Yeah. Josh, find that fucking idol, for Christ's sake.
Can we admire how well these idols are hidden, that we don't even get idol hunting scenes anymore? We just get knowledge that there's more clues than people know what to do with.
It reminds me of in All Stars again, when Micah finds the idol because everybody's just given up on looking for the idol. Like, that's what I think is going to happen. And we're going to get somebody like Mike finding the idol because everybody else has given up. And I'm like, Josh, fucking do something. Josh cracks me up, though. And I think the Josh-Doug relationship is going to really transform this season. And, who knows what's going to happen. But, like, if Josh and Doug kind of get on the same page and do something big, maybe it's even taking out Mike. Because it sounds like Mike and Liam are sort of in the most tenuous spot here, because we know what Sadie's going to do. And we don't know what Dalaran and Abby are going to do. and we kind of know what Doug is going to do, and we kind of know what Josh is going to do. I guess this is all to say we don't know how Dalaran and Abby are going to react to whatever's going on, and we don't know how Josh and Doug are going to plot. We don't know what they're going to do, and so Mike and Liam really suffer at the hands of Josh and Doug sort of being up in the air.
What I just overall find fascinating about these tribal swaps is, yes, old Chikasha has a majority in both tribes, but because they went to tribal council less, because there's these splinters that haven't been worked out, excised like Doug did with the air contingent and whatnot, you have people willing to flip on both sides of Josh and Santi, and so suddenly Doug and his alliance members of both tribes are both in a great spot, and I think Liam and Mike are in a very, very terrible situation right now.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you for succinctly summing up what I was trying to say. I have a bit of the sleepy brain, and I don't know why. I got 8 hours. So you have in your notes, and I think it's a good sort of thing to talk about. What should Jam have done here?
Yeah, so let's get back to Escala 2.0.
What the hell could they have done? Because I do think part of it is that Dane is a bit of a wild card. And they said Dane wants to vote on Amanda, sounds good. And then Dane went chirping off somewhere else. You know, like people are unpredictable, and it makes it really tough to execute something successfully.
So Jam is this tight alliance of 3. And when you're a tribe of 7, a tight alliance 3 is pretty powerful, right? You just need to get to a final 6, and then you have the threat of a rock draw to bully people to work with you.
Yeah.
And so I think it really should be focusing on how do we get to the 6? And I think they should have worked to stick as close with Santi as possible and really lull and say, no, Santi, it's fine. We're working with you. Let's take out Dane and whatnot. And like, let's win. Then we'll win through the rest and we don't have to worry about anything. I don't know. Whatever they should have done, I think it should have involved Santi and help they push to have Santi with them and make him feel as comfortable and happy as possible.
Exactly. Like when you lose the trust of Santi, that's when everything goes downhill, and it's a real shame because I don't think Santi. You were correct in saying like, yeah, Santi makes a pretty good move for himself here.
Yeah.
But also, you have to really invite the seeds of chaos and paranoia to convince Santi that this is a good move. And if you've done that, that just means that you really have not done enough to make your alliance feel comfortable.
Yeah. I was just thinking that the girls should have really been approaching on one-on-one and never mentioned themselves as a trio and just saying, hey, like, hey, you know, this is where we are. I want to work with you. I'm not quite sure where we should go, but I think it's really in our benefit if we just play by old Chikasha and just for this one vote to feel things out, and then like then you and me, let's figure out where we go from there and how we pivot between these two groups of 2 around us. I think there's been much more of a push for this in this episode. It really came clear. People were like, oh, Jam is a thing, and like people started picking up like, oh, there seems to be this alliance of girls going on right now. And Santi, like, first of all, he probably feels uncomfortable on this old tribe because he probably felt like people looking at him as a potential target. Right. And second of all, like he clearly has a relationship with Angie, somewhat with Jasmine. We don't know where he and Morgan stands, but Tim and Amanda and this alliance with Doug really seems a lot more opening and accessible to him.
Yeah, and so I would approach it from the perspective of, and I think it's important to approach if you swap with somebody and you're maybe in an alliance and you have a little bit of comfort, but you need one extra number. Everybody should be approaching that person and saying, I really want to work with you and I want to make sure that you don't go home. I don't think you will, but let's make sure that it's not either of us. What do you want to do? This was a strategy I sort of implemented a lot in Sequester, which was if somebody was on the block, I would say, what do you want to do? Who do you want to target? I will target that person. Didn't always happen, wasn't always true. But if you just go to somebody and say, who do you want to vote out? I'll do whatever you want to do. Santi, do you want to vote out Dane or Amanda? I'm down for whatever. You don't sort of take your pick. You ask the person who you really need the vote of, who do you want to vote out? Because it will immediately sort of make them feel confident in that you care about their opinion and you don't have anything on the side because you're saying, fuck it, I'll vote any of them out. I don't care. What do you want to do?
I will note, we saw in Winners at War, which was hilarious, that all these winners were super unwilling to ever throw out a name in that situation. They did not want to cause chaos or cause targets put in their back, which is probably why they won their season. But they were just like, I'm not playing that game. But no, I do agree. Like, to the extent you can have the person who fills in the outs, that feeds you the target and say, yes, let's work with you, and that gives you a great defense. People say, hey, why are you targeting so and so? It's like, such and such told me to vote that way, and so you like push it back on them.
Get under that bus, Terry.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it works. Yeah, it works both ways. You go to Amanda, you say, well, Santi was the one who threw your name out first, and I didn't want to do that, so we got the vote on Dane.
Mm-hmm.
And if you you have to separate Amanda and Dane even more to sort of fuel their fire, and I don't really know how that works or how that could possibly happen.
I do. So I was actually kind of a fan of what Jasmine was doing until Dane just said, nah, I don't believe her, and told everyone, and it all went downhill from there. I mean, I guess she needed the other girls really to be working on Dane as well. It needed to be a three-way concerted effort to really say, no, we want to be with you. Here's our concerns, on a much more one-on-one basis. And that Jasmine alone wasn't enough. And it was unfortunate for Jasmine. It did put a target on her. People are like, wow, Jasmine, of the three of them, is the one scheming and plotting and doing these things. And yeah, Morgan might be more of a challenge liability, but Jasmine's going to be a threat down the road we need to handle.
Exactly. And so Santi does make the correct move here. And I think to an extent, Dane, Tim, and Amanda all make the correct move here. It is actually in Dane, yes, it's tricky because at the same time, Dane could have made a really cool move with Jam, but feasibly they have the edge on Santi.
They're an alliance of 4 versus 2, right? And so, I guess what I want to ask you is, let's assume that those 4 stick together.
Yeah.
Who do they target next of Angie and Morgan?
I think if their tribe loses again, they might target Morgan, because it seems like Santi and Angie have something going on. Angie. It's like my shout out to Andrea. I just love vowels so much. Santi and Angie, or would you say Santi? Santi and Angie.
No, these abominations.
We see that scene with them, and Santi's kind of like, Angie doesn't really tell me anything. She's not giving me anything. And I don't know what she wants to do. She's very hesitant and very wishy-washy in her decision making. I think Santi wants to trust Angie the most. Mm-hmm. And I think that Morgan is perceived as weak, even though, as we saw, Amanda kind of just sucked as much as Morgan did. They all kind of sucked, and it's fine. Everyone's not going to be good at challenges. But you kind of have to think about it I guess it's going to be Morgan, but maybe you take out Amanda. If Amanda blows a challenge for you, maybe you take out Amanda and you kind of go back to having sort of the 3 advantage with the 2 girls. If you're Santi, then, letting these other 2 boys possibly get the numbers on you and vote you out. Because if I'm Santi, you got to be paranoid that the yellow 3 are going to take you out. Right? You can't just believe that they're going to be with you the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a threat saying, let's say they lose twice more, so they vote out Morgan. Then do you just assume they're voting out Angie, or do you think that they might kind of say, well, Santi might be more of a threat here? So one thing I thought was interesting is, so in the confessionals with Santi about Angie, he was like, it really matters that we vote with each other tonight. We really need to trust each other, and that doesn't happen. I don't know where we go from there. And Angie and Santi don't vote the same way. All right. Right. Angie votes for Dane, Santi votes for Jasmine. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what the fallout of that is, whether they're going to how their alliance is going to handle that sort of strain, whether they're going to say, well, here's the reason why we both did this. Can we still work together? Or is it going to be more fallout where Santi's like, I need to vote Angie out because I can't work with her now because we're on different sides. And this is a bigger problem for you than Morgan. Because let's say Morgan just lies low and plays dead, that Angie might be seen as now we have to take her out now.
Yeah, I think if Angie causes a big stink, it's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. But if Angie is able to ride the wave and like just be like, okay, Santi, that's all right. I'm fine. I understand why that had to happen. Then she could potentially find a better spot.
I was laughing though when Santi was describing like she's so wishy-washy, she's not committing, she's not giving me answer, and you're just like, well, because you're targeting her alliance. It's like we know like there's a very good reason for this attitude. It's just something I guess you realize when you play these games, like if someone's being super reluctant to go a certain way, you're just like, it's like, oh shoot, that's because you're working with them. Okay.
I always hate that, the dance of like, oh, you sure you don't want to vote out this person? Maybe are you're set on that? Okay. I'm gonna go talk with other people.
I think Andrew should have been okay. Yeah, I'll go with you. However, this is because I'm working with you. I don't know, and then say like, is this really the best thing for us to do though as a pair? Yeah, I think she really should have like said yes, I'm down for that. However, I want to think of the repercussions going forward, what this does to our game. And so, and granted, they talked for a long time, so maybe that's what she was saying.
Yeah, and the other thing is, are you going to tell the Chikasha members? And it's not coming to mind if there were any scenes of him, like, Santi sort of saying to other Chikasha members, like, hey, I am going to vote out Jasmine. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't warn people ahead of time, especially we see Liam is pissed. And if, Liam could really hold a grudge. And, if you want to get done what you want to get done, you don't tell Liam. But at the same time, when Liam's pissed, you got to deal with that. Because that's just like, that's what happens when you vote out a friend.
So I feel like we've deconstructed this episode. So I just want to give kind of my hot take for future Survivor Maryland players. You should always vote out people who are roommates with people in other tribes, or just roommates in general. You should always vote out one of the roommate pairs ASAP, no matter what. Absolutely.
And it's really tricky because I think people want to believe that like a roommate pair could be helpful to them. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when you live with somebody, it is so much harder to vote that person out.
Yeah. I mean, you're practically playing blood versus water at this point, and that's their blood.
Exactly. So I concur with you. I think it's a good sentiment for anybody who's playing College Survivor. Make sure you vote out the
I mean, because I don't know how much people are taking the extent like Doug's connection with Santi and vice versa. And we were even questioning how much will this be a thing. And then this episode, we're like, oh no, it is. This is exactly what we were suspecting it being. And granted, Abby and Dalaran are maybe a little bit more exceptions rather than the rule. Both of them seem to be doing things outside of Survivor, which is perfectly fine. But so in the game, they're playing a very low-key game right now. And that can change as things go later on. And maybe it will be agreed like, okay, yeah, see, now there's an issue. Now they're a duo vote. They're not seen as one vote. It's a pocket vote of two votes for whoever has them in an alliance. And that can be an issue.
And I think like you never want to be seen as a pair with somebody in Survivor because then you become interchangeable. And so to be seen as a pair with something that is difficult to control, right? It's your roommate. Maybe you're not even friends with your roommates. I wasn't friends with every roommate I've ever had. But if you don't take that into account, you're gonna be, it's gonna bite you in the ass. If you don't take a roommate into account, it's gonna bite you.
So I'd like to take one more bet to end this episode. When will the idol be found? We're at the final 13. Is it found next episode? 12, 11, 10, 9, 8? Like, how far do we go before the player actually finds where one of these idols is hidden?
I'm going to say 2 episodes. Not the episode that is airing on Monday, but the episode after that. I think someone's going to find an idol.
And is that a merge idol or not?
I don't think it's a merge idol. I think it's going to be the Josh idol that we've been looking for. I don't think Josh is going to find it. Okay. I'm calling on the powers that be. I think 2 episodes from now, not this episode, but the next one, not Josh is going to find a Josh idol, and we'll see where that goes. Because I think, further big brain, I think the tribe is going to lose again. I think Pascala 2.0 is going to lose again. And then I think Chikasha is going to lose after that. And that's when Liam is going to really need to find the idol. Boom, I said it. I called it. If this happens, Anders owes me $10. No, I don't know.
Well, technically, this all happened in the past, so maybe you just need to time travel and just ascertain it that way.
Got spoilers ahead of time to sound smart on this podcast. That would be
evil. I'll bet that no one finds an idol till merge.
Interesting.
That somehow we have a season with a lot of idol clues, which is interesting. But they're so well hidden, or people just suck at finding them, that we don't see idols come to play till merge.
I could believe it. I really could. I think it's like it's such a. It really seems like people are not looking hard enough. If that makes sense.
I mean, it's an edited show. People may be looking super hard and careful, but there's only so much footage of people looking fruitlessly you can include in an episode, right?
Sure. I mean, I guess I should say that I don't think they're looking hard enough in that they're going to a place and they're going, oh, okay, I looked around. Somebody must have already found it. Their brain is saying to themselves.
It could just be that assumption. Josh has the idol. There's no point looking. And Josh is like, I don't have the idol. I don't know where it is.
And Josh is just chilling with his big old glasses, being like, yeah, whatever, man. It's all good. You're like, Josh, go look for the idol. Oh, my God, Josh. Yeah, I'm excited. I am excited to see what happens next. Mm-hmm. And I have faith that Morgan, so now they're just meh. I have faith that Am has enough tenacity and intelligence to maybe pull themselves out of it, but I don't know how. I don't know how, so good on them. I hope they do it.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe here crazy. Liam gives the steal a vote to Angie or Morgan, and they steal a vote and force a tie, and neither one of them rock draws out.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Where it's like they vote for Morgan, but because Angie stole a vote, it ends up being a 2-2 split the second time, and therefore it's Angie rock drawing against potentially three people, right? And it's gonna cause one to flip. I don't know.
It's funny. Like, I think that the thing about Survivor that I love so much is when people are so set on their sides that they're like, we're gonna go to rocks, F it. And then one person screws it up. That's my favorite, is when like everybody's like ready to like kill each other and like, we're gonna go to rocks, and then Cochran flips and you're like, hilarious. So I'm really hoping that might happen, where everybody's like ready to go to rocks and then like Doug weasels out again. I would love it.
My favorite thing is people go to the rocks and they flip the vote after. Like we saw Millennials versus Gen X, right? They go to the rocks. Jessica Lewis goes home, and then like Will Wall's like, yeah, I'll flip. Why not? You're like, okay.
Exactly.
Amazing. Have you ever gone to the rocks, Naomi?
Have I ever gone to rocks? No.
I've tried.
I don't think I've ever gone to rocks. I have bad game memories. Like I can't remember everything that's ever happened in a game. The worst I ever had it was we were trying to get somebody to flip to eliminate so we could pagong one side of the tribe in Buffalo. And like everything went wrong, but we had like an idol vote. We had like an extra vote, and we tried it. It's really weird. But like one person from our side wouldn't pagong the other side. And so we had to vote out Army Adam. And like I was voting, and I was like, this is this person's fault. I'm sorry, Adam. Like, because we split votes. I think it was crazy. That vote was crazy. The Buffalo, not the merge, but the episode after the merge where I win immunity is insane. And so I would highly recommend, if you haven't checked out Survivor Buffalo, that episode is wild. And
is that Fate versus Free Will, their first season?
Yes, their very first season. Yes. Fun season, really edited really well. Kind of a fucking nightmare, but it was really fun. And like that's
in Survivor BC, their season 6, Rock Rain Valley, there was a tribe swap. So it was two new tribes of 6, equal 3-3 from each original tribe. And I was in the tribe with the guy in the other tribe from the other tribe originally who had the extra. I was pretty sure it's an extra vote, but it was an extra vote. And so my whole day is, do I flip? Do I not? I was like, I've never done a rock draw. Let's just do a rock draw. Maybe he won't play the extra vote. And he does, and takes one of us out. So we go. So it was a 3-4 vote, and there was no rock draw. And then I get voted out the round after. So poor decision making on my part, but I would still go to Rocks
I'll
Rock.
say this. I would love to go to Rocks. I would love the anxiety and the thrill. Like, I want to be there, you know? And I guess it's just like, it's never happened to me yet. But I do think I would be one of those people that goes to Rocks. Like, if I like you enough, fuck it, let's go to Rocks, because I love the chaos. I go to Rocks a lot in Mafia, because the way we play Mafia, shout
Oh
out to
gosh.
Jordan Kalis and all of them, is if the vote is tied 2 times and we can't decide on who to eliminate, we will go to Rocks, which is really fun.
You play hardcore Mafia.
And we've done it at Final Four, because you go to Rocks at 4, and it's really fun, because if you're sure that somebody's in the Mafia and the other person is like, no, I think it's the other person, like, you're like, I'm going to Rocks. But sometimes it'll just be, okay, this is such a tangent. Sometimes it'll just be where, like, there's 2 bad people and 2 good people, and the vote has happened where you've each sort of voted for one person, and therefore each side has 1 vote. And so you're like, well, if I go to Rocks, I have a chance of getting them out. Like I know they're not going to flip, and I'm not going to flip, so let's go for it. And I've won and lost games that way. It's so much fun.
Have you ever done it? Okay, last thing. Have you ever done it so the Mafia makes it so the 2 innocent people are both aligned with the Mafia, and the Mafia gets it so the votes are both on each other, so the innocent people will always rock draw each other out?
I've seen it happen where, like,
Oh my gosh, that must be
people in your
infuriating.
pocket and stuff like that. I've also, like, gotten incredibly mad during Mafia games and been like, I hope you all lose. I'm out of here. I'm tired of this. So it's just, it's a constant cycle of new options and things like that. And if you'd like to play Mafia, let me know. And anyone in the comments, if you want to play Mafia, we have a Mafia group and we do weekend games. But, I don't know. I don't go to them anymore because I'm too busy.
Yeah, I think this is a good place for us to maybe wrap up the stream. What else are you working on and involved in that you can share to our listeners?
Survivor New York Season 3. That's all that matters to me. Survivor New York Season 3. We are casting, and speaking of casting, if you would like to know what live reality games are casting, you can go to facebook.com/group/LRG casting that the lovely Dustin has put together to make it easy for you to find out which live reality games are casting at the moment. Watch Survivor New York Season 3. Our next episode is literally in 3 hours.
Right.
Fridays at 7. Steven, what about you? What matters?
Like you're still lose your mind, Naomi. I embrace it.
I don't know why. I'm just really sleepy. But I got good sleep. I don't know.
I did a podcast last weekend with the great Dustin Napper, Kurt Carlson, and Hannah Gilling. Gosh, I should know her last name by now. So I did a podcast with them called LRGs 101, where we walk through what is a live reality game and what is out there. Hopefully there's a start of a new series. We can take it on going from there. So most likely if you're listening to this, you know what LRGs are. But if you are a new listener, you'd like to learn more, I'd truly say go listen to that podcast. It was a lot of fun.
And to me, I really think like the great thing about that podcast is that we're sort of getting to express that there are a variety of LRGs, and you can invent your own fucking game. So while we're in quarantine, rack your brain, come up with a game idea, and like test it out during orgs, and then try and make it happen. Like the LRG community is open to everything and everyone. Mm-hmm. So take a chance, make an LRG.
And if you can make like a chopped or cut through kitchen LRG, let me know and I'll be there.
I would love that. I just wouldn't have any kitchen space.
Someone out there who's a fan who has like, I don't know, 4 different stoves and ovens and countertops, please make this happen.
Yeah, like you could probably do like a Project Runway LRG, but kitchen is hard. Mm-hmm. Or a British Bake Off LRG. Someday. That would be great. Okay. Yeah. Pitch us your ideas. Pitch the LRG ideas to Steven to put on the podcast. Exactly. Right. Well, that's it. I'm going to go take a nap, I guess. I don't know what's wrong with me. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And remember that Survivor Maryland airs on Mondays. And after the episode on Mondays, you can check out the amazing post-show recap hosted by Anders. Erin from Survivor Michigan, her mom was on the other day. So it's a blast. Tune in. And don't forget to subscribe to LRGs on iTunes. and wherever you listen to podcasts, because not everybody listens on iTunes. Okay. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.